You have to learn how to go hard when needed and learn when it's actually needed to go hard, and then learn when you have the opportunity to back off and kind of rest when needed. Because the whole point of the conditioning day is not about exhausting yourself. It's doing so while keeping your performance as high quality as possible. And not just high quality in one particular spot or time of that day, keeping it as high as possible, high quality as possible for as long as possible throughout the day. So you're going to have to play the averages, meaning there are times where you're going to have to go hard, and there's times where you're going to have to back off, so that overall, in general, for that day, you had high quality basketball performance because you, instead of going hard the entire time, you strategically figured out when it was appropriate to go hard and when it was appropriate to back off and get some rest and recovery. Also, talking about psychologically, I want to touch on really quickly what I call sort of the distraction filter. Because if you're playing indoors in an organized basketball rec league or something like that, playing indoors is much more consistent than playing outdoors. There are so many variable conditions that can take place outdoors that can be distracting. When you're outdoors at a park, a public park, there's usually kids there playing, families there enjoying themselves, cars driving by, all kinds of different possible distractions that can take your focus in different directions if you let it. And the more frayed your concentration is throughout that long period of that basketball conditioning day, the more worn down mentally you're going to become. I always found that if I was tired going into one of these conditioning days, even if I planned it, like sometimes you have a conditioning day that you don't plan. It just turns into a conditioning day because you show up to the court and there's just games all day long for hours and hours. But even on days when I would plan a conditioning day, if I woke up that morning and I found myself tired, it'd be much more likely that my focus and concentration would fray during that day. It would be harder to focus on doing just basketball activity after basketball activity. And ideally, especially for those basketball conditioning days when you're out there for such a long, continuous amount of time, the ideal condition would be like you find yourself in kind of like a Zen focused laser kind of zone state where time passes by, but you don't really notice it because that's how Zen and focused and in the zone you are. And when you're in that kind of zone, like your focus and your concentration doesn't fray. You don't get distracted. Ideally, you just sort of focus on the basketball activity that's at hand, and then you go through it and time just passes, and before you know it, the day is over with. But especially when you're talking about being outdoors at a public park, there's so many possible distractions that those sort of Zen in the moment, in the zone, laser focus kind of situations, they rarely happen because of all of the distractions. So if you can strategically figure out what you need to do individually for how your mind works and your game and your goals to keep yourself as focused and sort of calm and relaxed as possible as you go through this basketball conditioning day, the less your mind is going to be distracted, and thus the less likely it is for you to be mentally burnt out sooner.